Hello, beautiful vegans. Welcome to Empowered Vegans, the show that inspires and empowers vegans to live their best lives. Hosted by me, vegan empowerment coach Mariquita Solis. Each week, I feature leading experts in the vegan and plant based world, sharing inspirational stories, practical tips, and empowering conversations. My mission is to support the vegan community in living a fulfilling, joyful life while making a positive impact on the world. As a transformational coach, I also offer coaching programs to help vegans navigate challenges and create a life that aligns with their values. So please welcome my guest today, Todd Sinclair, author of the award winning Rebel Vegan Life. I'm so excited to have Todd here, and everyone who's watching, please give StreamYard permission to use your name. And please let us know your comments, your questions, and please reach out to Todd. And we're going to learn so much from him today. I'm excited, and I see that JJ's here. Thanks for watching, JJ. And welcome, Todd.
Thank you very much, Mariquita. It's really a pleasure to be here. We've been connected for about a year, and I've really enjoyed your content, and it's just an honor to be here. So thank you for having me.
Well, thank you. And where are you joining us from?
I am in a very gloomy London. I just arrived home, and the rain started, so I just made it before I got drenched. So I'm sitting here dry. And right in the center of London, I can see out my window here in front of me, I can see St. Paul's Cathedral and the Shard and a lot of gray clouds.
All right. So you're gray, and we're burning up hot, sunny over
Yes,
here, humidity over here
yes.
close to Atlanta. So it's amazing how we connect. And we're going to talk about that a little bit, how the pandemic changed everything. But first, I'd like to hear about your story as a vegan. How long have you been vegan, Todd?
I've been vegan. It's coming up just 7 years, about 7 years now. Yes. And I never thought ever when I was younger that I didn't even know what veganism was, but I never thought I would be a vegan. And now it's an important part of who I am, and also, informs my ethics and how I relate and connect to the world. So it's been quite a journey.
So, were your parents vegan?
No, 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 no.
Could you?
No, and still aren't, unfortunately. I've done my best, but no. I grew up on a farm, a mixed-use farm, but mostly dairy. So that's kind of the irony, or the trajectory of my life, is that I came from kind of one end of whatever the dietary spectrum to the other, where there was always, big jugs of milk on every table, literally straight from the barn, and meat was at the center of every plate. And so that's where I started from, surrounded as well, obviously, on a farm, by all this, what they called livestock, but all these, sentient animals, and seeing, growing up in that environment. And so, no, I have some of my family, a couple of my sisters and some of my nephews are asking more and leading a more plant-based life. But generally, no. When I go home to Canada, I have to order in and find food so I can eat with my family. So, no, it's sadly, I haven't had the influence or the impact I would have liked.
Well, on them, I'm sure you have on other people. So, yeah,
Yes.
that's very interesting. So, did you like? I didn't know what vegan was or vegetarian was as a child. That was never ever. Nobody ever said anything about that. When did you
No.
first hear about it, or did you even talk about it in your family?
Never talked about it. I don't think it was a concept that was ever, I grew up 40 years ago. So I don't think it was a concept that was even in common usage at that stage. And definitely not where I'm from. It's called Prince Edward Island, which is it's the smallest province in Canada. And it's mostly fishing and farming. So that would be the local communities, the main industries. So it wasn't something that I ever was exposed to, I ever saw. I didn't know the name. I had heard of vegetarians, and even that would have been seen as extreme. When I was growing up in my local communities, it would have been seen as something quite out there and wacky and fringe. So veganism was not in any way something that I knew about, thought about. I mean, I just thought, growing up on a farm with all these incredible animals around you, and I would have played with them as well, the young calves, or I had a pony when I was younger, and it was just the way of the world. And now, of course, I look back, and it's amazing how now I kind of buried a lot of those things, but now I can look back and see um, how much abuse was around me. And I hate to even use that term, but I think it's important. I don't like to use it, just throw it around. But, I think my family, they had quite an old fashioned type farm. So it wasn't a big factory farm, although when I return home to Canada now, to my island, it's interesting. All the fields when I grew up were dotted with Hertfordshire cows, black and white cows, and all these animals out in the fields dotted everywhere, just everywhere you drove. And now, when I've gone back in the last 10 years, I don't see that. And I remember being even confused 10 years ago, 12 years ago, and going, well, why are these fields empty? And my father pointing to these big kind of prefabricated buildings or barns made of metal, and they were often even circular, and saying, well, now they're inside there, and they go around and get their feed in the middle, and explained it to me. And I was like, and of course I'd heard of factory farming, but no, I thought my little island would always have this kind of innocence, possibly, or I hope to believe that maybe. And I realized, oh my goodness, even here, in this corner of the world, the farm I grew up in is no longer there. So even the farm I grew up with, where there was, a degree of free range and all these things, and an idea of animal husbandry, it was called. Now that has shifted dramatically, and a lot of these smaller family farms are bought out and conglomerated into larger farms, and often bought by international even companies, Cavendish Foods, various ones, some big ones, McCain's. If you've heard of McCain's frozen food, well, they're from where I'm from in Prince Edward Island. So is Cavendish Farms, and they've bought up all these smaller little family farms that would have been part of my heritage. And now they're these big super farms, and they have these big factory farms, and you don't see the animals in the fields outdoors. And that was a real jolt to me as well. And I remember I wanted to question more, and it was kind of brushed under the carpet. But yeah, things have changed dramatically, even in some of the smallest little, farming areas around the world. And that was something as well that stuck with me, and started had kind of put ideas in my head. Okay, what is this about, and how extreme? And wanted me brought up a lot of questions. So and I remember even now. I mean, when I wrote my books, I started at the very start of COVID. That gave me the time and the space and the peace to do the research and to write that first book. And I started having, while I was writing and researching about, animal welfare, environment, all those things, social welfare issues, everything, I was having, I don't know if they're nightmares, but kind of dreams anyway at night, where I remember what I had forgotten, which was things like calves and cows crying through the night, and me wondering why as a small boy, and just being told, oh, they have to do this, and this is the way it happens, and just kind of accepting it. But always wondering and always feeling it didn't make me feel good. And those things that I totally somehow buried came back. And I remember some of the jobs I had as a child, which now obviously appalls me, but even like burning the horns off the baby calves so they wouldn't grow these big horns when they became bulls. And things that are just the things I saw, the things I was part of even, as a young child. I was given a job, or I would help my grandfather or something. I had totally forgotten that all my adult life. I went on with life and moved to London and traveled the world. And I didn't reflect back on it. I kind of buried it away. And it wasn't until I was really doing this deep dive and to really want to get the most of this book, I realized my story is part of the story itself, of the books. That I was there, I was present, I witnessed it, even in a very, at a young age, in a very, traditional family farm. I witnessed a lot of suffering and a lot of things that came back to me, the sounds, the smells, And that really drove me and almost motivated me more. And that's, just drove me on. Okay, well, there is a story here, and there's something I want to really relay and convey in what became my books, in the end, three. But and even things like, I remember, putting the elastic around with this contraption around bulls' testicles. And that was something that happened every spring, and this happened every autumn. And, there's also the cycles of farming and things like, we would take in the hay and the straw and do this and da, 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 da. And those are much more kind of, I don't want to say fun. They were hard work, even as a child or a teenager. But it was part of the routine and the life of living and working on a farm. And I just kind of accepted that. Although I questioned it and I was sometimes uneasy, I thought this was just the way it was done. I hadn't seen the world. I hadn't done my research. I hadn't met other people. And so that was that all came flooding back to me. And now it's part of my story, because I've almost woken up to it again after bearing it away for decades. And that's incredible how strong that is for a child.
Yeah, it's amazing what we're taught and we don't question. It goes back to that programming of what we're watching as children, and we accept this is the way it is, and we don't question it sometimes we never question it. So it's amazing that you've come so far. You're an inspiration to so many people, because yeah, you are. Like, when people think nobody's going to, no, this person's never going to change. Well, we'll say, look at Todd, he changed. Look at how far he's come, which is amazing. It gives a lot of hope here. And so what was it what was it that made you think about vegan, or how did you hear about vegan?
Well, then I, growing up in a small island, and also just, I wanted to get out into the world. And that was always a driving force, throughout my schooling and education. I looked outwards, and I wanted to learn more, and I wanted to meet people. And I didn't want to just move to Toronto. Not that it's just, but I mean, I really wanted to get as far away and to kind of test the waters and test myself. So I moved to London when I was like 20 years old, and didn't know a soul, and came here to this city that kind of made me who I am. And then, of course, I was meeting people from every sort of background. And that was the great awakening and eye-opener and transformational for me. And I was going to more vegetarian restaurants with friends, asking questions. Even veganism then, at that stage, this was, 25 years ago, or 20 odd years ago. It wasn't like it is today. I mean, I'm so lucky to live in this incredible city where there's, dozens of amazing vegan restaurants, and I so love showing people around. Then there wasn't there, but there were vegetarian, and there were vegetarian options on menus. And I remember just meeting and talking and asking, and especially, coming from a farm, I wanted to learn how other people ate, different food systems. So I just started educating myself by asking questions, and started trying other things. And I thought I still had in my head what I was taught, that, eating meat was integral and was vital to a healthy diet, that you needed your protein, and all those classic tropes were things that I had absorbed and believed for all of my life. So that was very challenging. And I started to try other things and other flavors. I very much was meat, potato, to veg. That was a very traditional meal. And, that's kind of what I grew up on. And all of a sudden, it was all these new flavors. I mean, not even like necessarily plant-based exclusively, but just new flavors, new types of food. I was eating Indian and Thai, and I was, it was an exciting time of exploration. And I guess that's when I started wanting to know more. The journey was a long time. I was more vegetarian for a long time. And I think, and I had buried everything about farming. I kind of disassociated with that. I very much wanted to be a Londoner and to get myself into the city. So I just, it wasn't, and then I got a job traveling the world. So, worked in London. London's still my base, but I got a job with G Adventures, which is a brilliant travel company in Canada. And I traveled through South America and Asia leading these big tours. And I'd often have that's when veganism really came to the fore. I'd have vegans on my tour and I would be planning the meals and the social activities. So I very much, wanted to know, okay, veganism. That did sound, I mean, to be honest, extreme to me at the very first. I thought vegetarian, okay, that makes sense. I didn't know. And then, it was the vegans who made me think about my dairy farm and saying, well, you realize the cruelty in dairy. And I went, oh my goodness. And I had a little twig of, oh my gosh, I remember asking those questions. Why is this happening? And things started to fall into place. So it was while on the road, living out of a suitcase, being in different hotels every night or two, and, organizing big groups and doing their excursions, their activities, their meals, and just kind of empowering them, that I really got my head around veganism. And then, but I would still occasionally, I was more vegetarian. I was easing out. It was harder to get milk then when I traveled. There would either be milk powder, or soy milk. That was really it. There wasn't almond and oat and everything we see today. This was, 12 years ago, 13 years ago. So there didn't seem to be an alternative. And your hotel breakfasts were often egg-based, or there'd be milk everywhere. And I just kind of thought I had to accept that. And I just kind of thought, well, this is what sustains me. This is why I can get on this train and go for the next 7 hours. But then I got quite ill in Vietnam. I used to take my group on this kind of market food tour. And we ate at the stall that I've always eaten at. And it was always quite trustworthy, I thought. Well, everybody recommended it. Was a busy stall. And quite a few of us got ill on this meat thing, this wrap meat thing they do that everybody loved because they thought, oh, wow, it's from a street stall and it's trusted. And I got so ill, I had this severe case. I had to come off the road, and I'd never done that before. I'd worked for many years. I'd never have a day sick in my life. First time. And I was 30 odd. I was late 30s, actually, mid-late 30s. And I got very ill, and they had to, this had never happened. They had to fly someone in from Bangkok, where our head office is, and replace me. And I came off the road, and I was in this town named Hue, and kind of the middle of Vietnam, more kind of north. Anyway, and I was there, and I knew these monks in a monastery outside in the hills of Hue. And we used to do motorcycle tours and stop and have these vegan meals with them. And I loved them. And I knew the head monk. And he knew I was ill, and he said, well, come stay with us. So I didn't take a motorbike out that day. I was driven out, and I stayed in this very, sparse monastery. They put me in a really lovely room because they treated me like this special guest. And I'd never stayed there. I'd only just stopped and eaten, and they had, done a little tour of the monastery for us. And all of a sudden, they nursed me back to health on a fully plant-based diet. And there was no me kind of wishy-washy, well, I'm kind of a vegetarian, but there's no opportunity. I have to eat eggs and milk. There was none of that. This was all plants. And I instantly felt lighter and better. And also they, and I just, I was convalescing, and I was getting better and stronger. And I never felt better. And then I talked to a couple of the monks that I worked with and knew better, who spoke English. And they told me about the spiritual side of it, not necessarily the health. They recognized the health side of a plant-based diet, but they talked about the spiritual side, that you're not causing any death or pain or suffering, and how, your spirit will be lighter and you will travel through the world easier. And all of those things really appealed to me. And I said, this is the moment I've been waiting for. I've been researching this and talking about this, but on the road, I always made excuses, which is easily done. And I said, no, this is I will no longer cause any suffering or pain unnecessarily so. And I was there for about only 4 or 5 days, and I felt like a new man. And I went back into Hue, the city, to start another tour. And that was the start of my new life. And I had to rethink everything, as I'm sure a lot of people out there, and you must have done, when you came to that realization. That it's quite empowering. And then you go, okay, how's this done? I'm also in a new town every couple days, traveling through Cambodia and Vietnam and Laos and all these places. So I knew my restaurants. I knew they had some vegetarian options and maybe they could veganize something. And I thought, how is this going to work? And I just said, well, I'm going to make it work. And I will never consume animal products again from that visit in the monastery in the hills of northern Vietnam. And so that was a real incredible turning point, and I'm so grateful to them. I went back to visit them um, last January and to tell them that I'm still well, because I hadn't seen them over COVID. I hadn't seen them for several years. And I just wanted to, I'll never say goodbye because COVID happened and I flew out of the country without, really a proper goodbye. So I went back to thank them because they had transformed my life, and I'm eternally grateful.
That's a beautiful story. Well, many, many beautiful parts of that story. And I love the monks also. We had some that came to our church, and some of them were vegan, but not all of them.
Yeah,
But
some aren't. Yeah, well, it depends on the type of Buddhism and things that they study. Some groups are fully vegan. This one was, and they also have like a monk nunnery. They even called it, where it was a whole women's group of monks, and they were fully vegan as well. And they wore the pink robes, not the orange saffron robes. And they had another monastery, and they were exclusively vegan. And I know going through different Asian countries, Vietnam, it's hit or miss, but then where was it? Some in Myanmar and Burma that I went to were fully vegan. So it depends how they interpret their own scriptures, but a lot of them at least recognize that you should not be covering, like it's an important part of their beliefs that you should cause the least suffering you can. So I think it's implied in it's in a way, but anyway, yeah, no, it was wonderful.
yeah, I bet you I would love that experience. I need to put that on my bucket list.
But when I came back into this town, I was walking down this dusty road where all the backpackers hang out. And I was just newly vegan. I was 4 days in or 5 days in, and I'm usually have like 15 people behind me. And all of a sudden it was just little me walking down a road. And I thought, oh, good, I can just kind of, do my own thing and explore. And I hear this kind of yell and, it's you, come in. And it was one of the restaurants I often use, and they're very, very good to me and my groups. And I had been there in like ages. I hadn't been there in like, I don't know, at least 6 months, maybe a year. So I was surprised they remembered me so strongly and fondly. And they insisted I come in and have the front seat at the window, and sat me down and didn't even let me order. They went running off to the kitchen, and they brought me back a coconut that was freshly cut, and they knew that was my favorite drink. So I'm drinking my coconut, and then the chef comes running out and sets this steaming plate in front of me. And of course, it used to be my favorite dish, which was just kind of almost curried soup, and it had chicken in it. And I was like, oh God. And they had made a big song and dance. They'd come out and put this elaborately, said, we so love you and remember you, and here's your favorite dish that you used to order. And I went, oh dear, what do I do now? and I had to think on my feet, and I explained to them, I said, well, I've had a big change in life. And I said, I no longer eat chicken. I actually no longer eat any meat or any animal products. And I explained it to them, and I explained what happened to me. But, and it made, it was interesting because then I said, I explained the nutritional side of it as much as the ethical side of it. That, the amazing things that we don't even realize what plants can do, and that this is all we need nutritionally for proteins and for all these other things that, we've been misled to believe we need animals for. And I said, I'd feel much better. And they said, oh, and they took the plate away. They said, come on back to the kitchen. And I went back with him into the kitchen. And he said, let's make something. Let's make your favorite dish with your spices, with your flavors, without any animals. And we did that together. It was like mid-morning. So it wasn't like it was full. It was just kind of us. And he asked more questions about this veganism. He's like, oh my goodness, what next? And he really embraced it and made us closer. That's made me realize that this doesn't have to be restrictive. That was that realization, because often I think people believe and people or project that onto you, that veganism is very, very restrictive. And oh my goodness, you must find it very hard to eat out and do anything. to live your life. And I realized, no, it just opens up my world, because now I've got a bond with these people that was much stronger and deeper than it was when I was just kind of going in. I've explained some of my life, some of my passions, my ethics, and they've told me theirs back. And they said, actually, many of our dishes, and I love that about Asian culture, they've made them more meat centric or heavy, because they're used to Westerners coming through, whereas previously meat would be part of a festival or a big feast. And almost everything was pretty much plant-based, maybe with an egg in it, but otherwise pretty plant-based. And they said increasingly now young people think they have to have meat in everything. And that's changed since when they were young, when they didn't have meat on their plates or in their soups or in their, different curries and things, and telling me their story. So all of a sudden, because of this, because of me kind of explaining as diplomatically as I can, they're opening up to me, and I'm learning about them and they're learning about me. So I think that's the great thing about traveling with vegan values, is what I call it, is that, you really do it. It opens up your world. You have an in. It's not that, you're closed off and it's just you alone. It's you can find the local cafe, a vegan cafe. You can find other vegans online. And all of a sudden, you've got a group that shares similar ethics and beliefs or passions, and the world opens up. You meet the local community. And that's what happened to me.
Yeah, and you're very charismatic, and you're seeing it as a positive, right? Like, people tell me, "Oh, you can't eat that." Well, I can eat it, but I choose not to eat it. I live my life in
Yeah.
a different way, right? So yeah, it's not like you were saying, the restrictive. But I know. So as a coach, as a transformational coach, a lot of my clients really beat themselves up about what they did in the past. So I love the fact that you have come and you're not stuck on that. Like, I've now got to I've got to make up for all my sins that I did, all the meat eating and everything. I mean, because I could see where that might hold you back. But being able to just move forward and make a change, make a shift, and be so energetic and, fulfilled with life is beautiful. So what would you say to, like, people out there that feel guilty that they didn't know sooner, and that they ate meat and they laughed at animals?
Yeah, no, and I understand that. And I totally, and I had that, especially, like I say, the first time I actually stopped and looked back was when COVID hit. Otherwise, my life, I just kept going. And I found veganism through these, a health crisis of these monks, and found a way of making it work for me, and also in a wonderful way where I've never felt better. But then when I stopped, when COVID hit and I was isolating alone, all these visions and noises and times came back to me. And I had quite a dark period where I was like, walking around this flat alone, kind of going, I can't believe I did that. And why, the suffering that I was part of, not just buying it on a shelf, but going out to the barn with my father. And I had to really reconcile that and work with it and say, okay, well, now I can make a difference. Then I was a child, or then I was a young adult. And I could be, I was angry at myself a little bit. I said, you should have questioned more. You should have pushed back. You did have questions, but you weren't strong. I wasn't strong enough then to challenge it. And I accept that. Other kids my age might have been. And I've heard stories, and I've met vegans who I'm so in such admiration of, who say, as a young child, I said, no, I'm not. If that's like my dog, or if that's like the sheep I saw on the farm, I don't want to eat it. I think that's astounding, but I think that is the exception to the rule. I think that's one incredible, and I always go, wow, you're amazing. But most of us just kind of accept what we're told from our parents, our culture, our society, and we get on with it because that's what life's about, And we are all misled, and I was terribly misled. And I don't even think it's my parents' fault necessarily, because they were misled as well. And they were fed lies from the media and from the farming industry and all these people. And they all believed it because they think these people in positions of authority should have the right and, should be able to tell us what to do. But anyway, so I just kind of said, okay, I was misled. I did some things that I'm really, really not happy with. And I need to let that go. And I need to, very importantly, make amends now and live my life as an example, as a way that hopefully can, and that's very much what my books, the sort of ethos of my books, to inspire people to find the best in whatever that driving force is, into veganism, into a more ethical, kind, compassionate life where we're not causing any suffering to the environment, to other beings, to ourselves, to anyone. That was really important to me. And that's what I held on to. And I think we can all do that. We've all got to let go our past, because otherwise it's not helpful to think, oh, what if I was better at challenging this and I was quicker, where we weren't for whatever reasons in our lives. I think it's just very common. You know, we all have a million things going on. And I wasn't. And I did spend a time I was angry. And even angry at possibly a little bit my family, my upbringing. And then I had to let that go, because I love my family and I know they're kind and compassionate people. And sometimes people we love do things we're not happy with, or, you know, they might vote for somebody we're not happy with, or we still can love them and we can still see the kindness or the good in them. So that's very much where I had to get to. And the books was some of my therapy. And I went, great. And it gave me the drive. And I often say, whatever that is, whether you're really into the environment, fantastic, embrace it, get in there. And then things like ethics will fall into place. I know a lot of people come to veganism for health. They might have watched The Game Changer, or they might have watched something. And then when you get there and you start Googling things, other things come to you, and you realize the atrocities of our food system and animal farming and animal agriculture. And then it all impacts. And you just become more empowered. So I think whatever you can do to find a way to spread the word, to spread compassion and justice and all our vegan values, then you're doing good in the world. And don't be hard on yourself. You've made that change, and that's brave, and that's wonderful. And now you can be an example and spread the word and change other lives.
Yeah, and I love what you're saying here with when you're talking about making amends. And some people make amends with sorrow, but you're making amends with joy. Like, I'm excited to make amends. And you know, it's not like, oh, I was so horrible, now I've got to make amends. It's like, I want to help, and I'm doing it, you know, with this beautiful energy that you have. So that's amazing.
Well, I love, you know, talking about it with people and explaining it, but not doing, I don't want to do it in a confrontational way, like you are bad and evil. That doesn't get you anywhere. And I know I have done that, you know, where
I think we all have.
Yeah, we all have. And sometimes I do get mad. And sometimes I can be that person in the kitchen doing a little rant. I still can. And I catch myself, you know, and I've done it. But I now try to just soften the edges and go, okay, what's an in here? And ask more questions. Okay, why do you think meat's important? Why do you like eating meat? Is it just the taste? Do you believe this? Get some information and ask those questions in a very, you know, a familiar, easy way, and then try to explain your point that, okay, well, I see it this way. And what I've done when I've read about it is that you don't need that for that. And that taste can, you know, is very fickle and can change, and you can adjust your taste buds very easily. And you know, it's not worth the suffering. If you take your head out of the sand and look at the suffering and abuse that is at the end of this food chain, then it's very hard to sleep at night for me. And most people would kind of have a little jolt going, well, yeah, that is kind of hard to take. And they can go away and think about that and do what they will. And it might take them years or days or maybe never, unfortunately, but they, you know, you have no control over that.
Right. You plant the seeds and you just go on. Yeah. Definitely. And what does your family think about when you first told them you were going vegan? What did they think? You know, and your friends, what did they think?
Goodness. Gosh. Well, the first time I went home, I don't think I even told them at first. I just kind of did my traveling, did my job, lived my life thinking, I'll leave that for another day. And then I was going home, you know, and staying with my family. And I said it in a Facebook message. I said, by the way, my diet's changed this last year or so. And I don't eat any animal products. We're called vegans. And this is what it means. So I said, you know, I still want to be part of family meals. I still hope, you know, we can do this and come together and enjoy a meal. It's just that we'll have to do it differently. And I can bring my own stuff. You can take me to the grocery store and I can go around and I can find the vegan section and I can find all the things I need. And we can cook even side by side. And the response was a little bit at first like, oh my goodness, what next? And that's okay, because it was likely a jolt. I think when I came out as gay, it was less shocking than me coming out as a vegan. So there you go. They said, that's what I think why they said, oh gosh, what next? Not only is he gay, he's a vegan. How did he reproduce? Has he been adopted? But anyway, I think they, after that initial pushback and a little bit of, oh my gosh, what's happening? They did their own little soul searching, maybe, because, they love me and want me to come home and want me to be there. And one of my sisters went out. I have 3 sisters. One of them went out to a grocery store and bought like Beyond Burgers, I think was out there, or some sort of plant-based meat, and some egg replacement, and bought these things, which is just really thoughtful, and bought almond milk. Was it almond or, anyway, she bought me a milk, which I then, so when I came home, the fridge wasn't stocked, but it had some nice things that I could, and so when my father did a barbecue, I could kind of mark a bit of it and say, this is where no animal products go, and join in and do this. And then slowly talk to them, because they had lots of questions. And like the milk, I said, well, try the milk. You know what I mean? Like they always put on the cereal or the whatever, there'd be cow's milk. And I'd say, well, try this. I said, it's actually, I've adjusted my flavor. I couldn't imagine the taste of milk now. This is so lovely. And they would try it. And my mother would, well, actually, that's very good. And maybe try it again the next morning. So it was just planting these little seeds, which I really loved as well. And even when I did the egg replacement, and my father often does eggs every morning, or porridge or eggs. He does the breakfast. And get him, and so he'd make lots of, I get him a porridge mix where there was no animal or products in it. And then, we generally started to incorporate all these other plant-based things. And they would appreciate it. I say, well, tonight, why don't I cook something? And cook for, like, say it was just my parents and I that night. That would be easy. And I'd cook a meal for the 3 of us. That was all vegan. And I wouldn't even necessarily make a big deal of it. Like, this is going to all be vegan. I'd just say, I'll cook the meal and I'll do a nice salad of all the things we love, and get these really nice kind of vegan substitutes that they could kind of understand, and make it all come together. And they go, wow. And I would also then try, without lecturing, explain the health benefits, because my father's family is a big family, farming family. And there's 9 siblings, my father and 8 others. And my grandparents, they big farmers, one of the biggest in that area at the time. And they're very healthy. They're teetotal. They do not drink. They do not smoke. They're outdoors. They play sports. So they're, pretty incredibly healthy family in many ways. But of course, their diet is just laden with animal products, with meat, and so much milk, like glasses of milk with every meal type of thing. Crazy stuff that, any nutritionist would tell you is just bad for you. And so they're drinking this, thinking it's been told that it's part of a strong, healthy diet, believing it. And then as the siblings are getting older, some of my father's older brothers and sisters, there's been some heart attack and some heart problems. And I'm kind of sitting there going, oh, I kind of know where this is. They shouldn't be having these problems with such an exemplary, healthy life, except for their diet. And I tried to challenge my mother a bit on this, and she accepted it and said, well, I'm going to try to cut down on the animal products. Because I was worried about my own father, and I'm worried about my uncles and aunts and everyone. And I was saying, we have to rethink this. We have to look at the evidence. We have to be open to the new science and not just believe the things that have been fed to us. And through years of the education department and the health department telling us almost lies. And so, yeah, my mother took it on board, and I was really, really happy about that. She said, she would find other things and try to reduce the meat, find other things from milk. My father's pretty stuck on the milk because, he's a dairy farmer, and he thinks that this is his whole life, his whole heritage. He's been doing this. How dare you tell me I can't drink milk? But my other family members are, finding milk alternatives and replacements. And so it's sinking down, it's taking an impact. And I'm going back next month in August, and now they kind of know what to expect. It's not a big deal, but it was another coming out. I came out as gay, and here I am coming out as a vegan. Very similar things. That's what's really interesting. Very, very similar. Like a little bit of disbelief, a little bit of, it just shakes them up. Pushback. I don't know what's this all about. And then slowly they tentatively start asking a few questions and want to know more and want to understand you and why this is a driver for you. So that was really nice. And like I say, I think all vegans experience coming out in our own way. And we have a coming out story that's unique and can be inspirational. It can be painful. People can learn from it. They can laugh about it. But we all share that as a community. And that's really nice as well. So my vegan coming out story luckily ended happily. And I'm going home next month, and they will be, they'll have the fridge with all my favorite things.
Well, that's wonderful that they're very accommodating. I love it. And, everything's kind of slowly moving forward, it sounds like, and that's beautiful. So tell us about traveling, because a lot of times we'll travel to places and we'll get to somewhere. Like the last time I went to an Airbnb or something, I remember all sorts of little snacks here, and none of them were vegan. Or then you're trying to hunt the vegan places. I mean, what do you recommend?
Yeah, I mean, I always call it like traveling with vegan values. It does come with its own kind of complications, and you have to be prepared. Even in my travel, I have a vegan travel guide, Rebel Veganism on the Go, it's called, and talking about how you prepare for that, right? Even while you're packing, while you're booking your flights, obviously. There's even an app about that, I think it's Air Vegan, where you can look at what's in each airport, what's plant-based or vegan. But planning what you pack for that. And I always take a little bowl and my own spoon, and I pack a little Tupperware thing full of muesli. I have my, mixed seeds and nuts. And you just learn to use corner stores and always have that in your day bag. I always had that. And I would have my little, and every morning, and so I didn't have to just have the eggs that were on offer. I would pour myself at the corner shop. As soon as I arrived in that town, I'd go buy some soy milk or some almond or some whatever they had, oat milk. They always have something now, usually soy in Asia, but that's fine. And I just make sure it was the sugar-free one. Otherwise, you would have a really sweet breakfast. But and I would have my own little thing there, and I get the local fruit, and I'd put some blueberries in it or some this, and I'd have this lovely muesli I'd bought in this Tupperware that I bought 2 stops ago in a big supermarket in Bangkok or somewhere. And I would just always have that. And I'd start my day, which is so important, start my day in a really healthy, positive way and have all that with me. I wouldn't rely, unless you're staying in some amazing resort where they have this huge buffet, all you can eat. There's going to be hundreds of options there. And there always is. And I've done that. And that's glorious. But if you're just going around a little tiny hotels with a regular breakfast or a hostel, you really need to plan ahead. And even on your long journeys, I would have those little things. I would buy figs and have them in a little bag. And I would have a few pieces of fruit, and I'd have my nut mix, my trail mix. And I'd always have that. So if we stopped at a little station, everybody else was buying something from a vendor or something, I didn't have to worry. There might be something there, and wonderful if there is a vegan option or a plant-based option, but I wasn't worried. I knew that I could take this long journey of 8 hours. It was fine. I had enough. With flights now, you can usually book a vegan option, although a few times recently I was surprised when I couldn't. But you can plan ahead and have these little things in place. And whatever you have in your bag, complement it with the corner shop, whatever it is it 7-Eleven in Asia, whatever that shop might be. And you can find little bits of bread and fruit and nuts and things. I love my, figs and dates and all those things just to have for a little sweetness. And you can have that all with you, and they travel really well and pack really well. And they're always there, and they can sustain you for a day till you get somewhere where you can veganize something or have a vegan, hopefully even a vegan cafe or restaurant now in a lot of the world. So things like that really need to be thought out, but it's not like rocket science. You just need to think a bit about it and have a bit of preparation and do a little run around when you're there. And the great thing about things like Happy Cow and all these apps is that you can find what's there, or you can find a supermarket, and a supermarket's always going to have, I love going to a supermarket anyway. I don't know about you. It's just really interesting in a new country to visit a supermarket. And that's one of my first stops is where's the supermarket, even if it's a little town. And I want to go there and I want to go through all the aisles and see the locals shopping and what they're buying and what it's like and what's on offer. And finding their local fruit and some exotic fruit or something to try and to search down the little bits that are vegan that I can use and adapt. I used to even I call it my coffee pot hack is, buy a lot of soups are vegan, vegetable soup. You can look at the ingredients, make sure there's no cream, but you can usually buy soup somewhere and your little coffee, pots that are often in hotel rooms, put the soup in, warm it up. You've got a lovely vegan soup. You usually have a warmer there for coffee. Well, use it for a lovely vegan soup you bought for 99 cents at the little tiny shop or at the grocery store. Have those little things with you. And then when you get somewhere a bit bigger or you're going to a destination with lots of vegan options, that's when it's really exciting. That's when you can go and meet the local community and meet other vegans and connect with people. And that's when being traveling vegan really takes off and you realize, wow, I'm blessed. I've got a ready-made community and most bigger towns and cities just there ready to meet and that I can connect with much easier than just walking into a regular restaurant or a bar and sitting down beside Joe Blow beside you. You're actually meeting somebody who's also gone through a similar journey than you, who's had similar experiences about coming out vegan, like I just said, or, trying to find vegan things in that community. And you can connect on that and it opens up your whole stay there because they're going to tell you about, oh, this is a really good place and don't miss this. And nobody knows about this, I've had people invite me to their home, and it really is incredible. But yeah, COVID changed everything. And I hope the whole world, what I really want to do is, I think vegan values are a really important thing for the way forward for travel. And that's what I'm trying to promote, because COVID made us all stop and it was devastating in lots of ways and devastating, I know for many, many people and many industries, especially the travel industry, which was likely the most vulnerable. If you think it relies on people feeling safe to go out of their home and to go to foreign places. And COVID just knocked that on the head and ruined that. So their industry was likely hit more. And I know so many businesses throughout Southeast Asia where I traveled and worked that, I know them and I know their family that were just destroyed and it was devastating. But it also, to look at it from the other side, it also gave us time to think, to rethink how we can do this better and the way forward in a more sustainable, compassionate way. And I hope we really took that time and take those lessons because the way travel was going, it wasn't sustainable. It was becoming destructive even, and local communities would just be trampled over and cultures would be kind of, we needed to do this differently. COVID gave us the time and space to think about it. And now it just isn't about everybody going vegan necessarily, but I do think vegan values and travel embracing vegan values of compassion and justice and sustainability are integral and to the way we rethink travel and the way we go out in the world again. So that's kind of where I try to kind of highlight and talk about with a lot of people as well, the ways they can do that better.
Wonderful. Yeah. And I like the way it's not like all or nothing here. It's just very gentle and accepting and really mindfulness about like who you are, what your values are, and how you live in that, in the alignment. Because so many people, they don't know why they're living, right? Like what's your purpose here, right? They don't know what their values are. And so they're feeling a lot of loss or like confusion and emptiness because they're not grounded. And what's so beautiful about being vegan, and one of the things is that like we really know that we're stepping up for the environment, for the animals, and that's so powerful in my soul. I feel that in my soul. That's great power when I know what I'm standing for. I know what I'm living for, and being in alignment with that. And I mean, that's a big purpose in my life. So I know my life is meaningful. So I know I make a difference. And so, and you're kind of bringing awareness to that when you're talking about the vegan values with people, just like opening up a little door for them to think about that. What does it look like to live like this? So that's beautiful, Todd.
Yeah, no, and I totally agree. I think I feel better in myself, more myself, after coming to veganism or coming out vegan, because I always had this tension that I kind of knew something wasn't right, especially as I learned more and I moved away from the farm. And I kind of balanced that. I think a lot of people push it out of the way. I think a lot of thoughtful, kind people do have their heads in the sand, but they know somewhere and they live with this cognitive dissonance, as they call it. But, I call it moral schizophrenia. They're good, kind people who love animals, yet they're causing suffering to animals. That to me is a moral schizophrenia. But people can get consumed in their life and they blinkers on and they don't go there. But as soon as you do go there, and like we both have, and what you just said really made sense to me, because you're in alignment with your actual core beliefs. You're not acting differently than what you're saying. You're actually living your true, authentic self, and that's incredibly powerful, Mariquita. I agree. And I think people likely don't realize that, maybe. I don't know. I think a lot of people don't realize how that is a lighter feeling going out into the world, and especially traveling as well, like we were talking about. If you go into local communities and you're consuming all their things and they're running around and da 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 da, you can do it so much better. You can connect in a better way. You can spend your money locally and not have this leakage to big corporations. You can do all these things, and those are all about, to me, they're vegan values. And it's a word I use a lot in my books, in that sense that, when you embrace vegan values, it's hard to go back. And, it is about the justice for things, to do things right, and for the environment, for the local communities. It is about compassion. And that's powerful stuff. That's life-changing. And it can change us, it has, but then you can spread that around. And when you go out into the world, it just it almost like a ripple effect, I think.
Yeah, definitely, because I mean, just me affects, like, I mean, thousands and thousands of people, right? And after I'm gone, I'm still going to affect people all the time. You're right. It is like a ripple effect. I love that. And I think not only does it bring peace, veganism, but it brings, I mean, power, but it brings peace, right? Because when
Yeah.
you feel aligned, then you can feel peaceful. I don't have to feel like, oh my gosh, what am I doing in my life? I know what I'm doing in my life, right? There's no
Mhm.
more questioning. I mean, sure, I mean, like, it could change, how my advocacy changes, and that's fine. And I love the gentle way that you handle it, right? We're not here to force anybody. We're here just bring awareness to people, and being aware of where they are. Like Dr. Angela Crawford talks about the stages of change, their readiness in this process. And like you said, maybe they won't be vegan, right? Maybe they'll be vegan maybe in a few years, or maybe down the road, who knows, or maybe never. But acceptance of that, because I love the Dalai Lama's book on happiness, when he was saying, when you accept there's going to be illness, and you accept there's going to be bad times, and you accept these things are going to go wrong, then you're going to be a lot happier. So when we accept that we can't change everybody, then we can be at peace, because we're living in alignment with ourselves. We're not dependent on what you say to me. I'm not dependent. My happiness does not depend on if you go vegan, because my
Mhm.
happiness depends on who I am and how I live. And
Yeah.
that's what's so important.
And living by our true values, and I think it's so empowering, and I can see that in you, and I feel it as well. And I don't think you could have pushed me anytime sooner. I don't know. Maybe I could have been, but I'm so grateful that whatever, all those different things came when they did, and it took me to where I think I was meant to go, and enabled me to be at peace with myself. So there wasn't tension. I wasn't like, oh, I believe in this, but this is what I do. I was just fully, like you say, aligned. And now, if I can just, I don't know, if I can inspire or describe to people, whether I'm at a dinner party or in my books, um, that incredible feeling, I think that's important. And to do it in a way where everybody's welcome. I'm not going to be sitting in judgment. That's important to me as well. I know everybody's got their own story, their own situation, and it could be, whether it's economy or upbringing and all these things. I'm not going to sit there and judge, well, how dare they, and get increasingly angry. But I do think, and I do have real hope that, I see how it changed in me. And I took likely baby steps and explored vegetarianism and did this and challenged myself when I was ready to challenge myself a little bit more until I was ready to take that leap. And that, for me, that was late in life. I wish I would have done it when I was 21, but I didn't. And I got there. And now our voices, they just grow and grow. And we got more coming out stories and more examples. So, and I do think that with time, we'll all become increasingly plant-based. I think the science is irrefutable and more, it's reaching a bigger audience. But I think even beyond that, with technology and food and with farm subsidies, I talk about this. I do a talk sometimes of the future of food. And whether we like it or not, and most people won't like it if you ask them, we'll inadvertently become increasingly vegan, if not almost exclusively vegan in the next, well, it might be 40, 50 years. I don't know how long. We need to, first of all, for the environment, obviously. But also, if you think that farming subsidies that prop up all our meat that you see in the grocery aisles are artificially cheap. They're cheaper than blueberries, for heaven's sakes. And that's, even though the resources it takes in the water and the land, it shouldn't be that cheap. But all our taxpayers, whether you're in the United States or here in the UK or Canada, Europe, we prop up with our taxes, the farming, the industry. And so meat arrives cheaply, but with increasing pressures on governments, with COP27 last year and all these environmental initiatives, it's on the agenda. And politicians will have to pull back those farm sanctuaries within the next 10 years, if not the next 5. So when that pulls back and that meat that's packaged so nicely in all our supermarket shelves becomes double, triple the price and reflects what it costs to produce it, that will be a defining and shocking, but also a pivot point where people will just walk down. I think it won't even be a meat aisle. I think it'll be a protein aisle. And I think you'll have 3 types of protein at first. You'll have old-fashioned animal-based meat. You'll have super realistic, likely plant-based meat. And then, of course, you'll have cultured meat or cell-based meat, which will increasingly, be scaled up and become cheaper and cheaper. And eventually the old-fashioned animal-based meat will be the most expensive. So just because of economy, the vast majority of people will not be eating animals that were once living. And I think that'll be, across definitely the first world at first, or the Western wealthy nations. And then it will filter down. There'll still be tribes and various things. But it will spread. And I think that's really important to have that when you are feeling really, oh my goodness, is this ever going to happen? The world just isn't listening. They will listen because things will change. The systems will change. So that kind of, I want to live to see that. That would be very good.
I want to live to see that too. I'm 55 now, so I don't know if I'm going to make it, but I'd like to try to make it.
You will. We'll both be there.
Good. Well, let's see. We got a comment for you that says you should start a YouTube channel, Todd, or a podcast channel. So where can they find you? Tell us about this.
I have I post a lot on Instagram. I do a lot of content and reels about different things I cook and different restaurants I find and travel tips. On Rebel Vegan Life is my books are called Rebel Vegan, and my Instagram, my Facebook is Rebel Vegan Life at Instagram, or Rebel Vegan Life at Facebook. I'm on TikTok as well. And then also I have a website where you can get some of my background stories, some of my recipes. That's rebelveganlife.com. So that's kind of my handle on social media and in the world. And I've often wanted to do a podcast. So thank you. Thank you, Rainbow Vegans Rock. I like that idea. It's just finding the time and gaining the skills to bring together a podcast, because I have a few ideas. So down the road, watch this space. Hopefully there'll be a podcast.
Yeah, that'd be fun. I want to be on the podcast.
Oh, absolutely. You'll be one of my first guests. Definitely. You will return the favor. I'd love that.
Podcasts are fun. I love talking to people because I get so much from each guest and hearing everyone's stories. And I'm giving back to them. And so it's beautiful, especially the vegan community is so warm and loving. So, yeah. And so everyone
should. Part of this community, aren't we? Yes, absolutely.
Yes, we really are.
Tomorrow, I'm going to Vegan Camp Out up in Northern England in Bicester. And there's 7,500 vegans camping out all together with all these amazing food vendors and trucks. And I'm just going to be surrounded by our community. And I will be thinking of you all, but it's just a great opportunity to connect, share stories. And that's what we're doing here. And that makes our voice even more powerful, I hope.
Yes, it does. And well, so are you going to be posting photos to Instagram?
I will be on Instagram and Facebook with little reels or little videos of me showing some of the food. And I'm going to have lots of different outfits. I'm going to dress up every day in festival gear. I might even have some makeup on. Who knows? So come see me on Instagram and I will try to entertain you. It might be muddy. It might rain. So if it's muddy, I might not look as glamorous.
Your makeup will be running, but that's okay.
Exactly.
All right. Go ahead.
I wish you could come, Mariquita. That would be amazing. If we get you over here, you'd have to give up the sunshine in Georgia and be here in rainy England, but it would be worth it for the weekend.
It would be. I know someone mentioned it to me last year, and I would love to. Maybe in the next few years, I'll put that on my list of things. Sure. That'd be so much fun.
It's the biggest vegan outdoor festival in the world, and it's pretty amazing event. And anybody who's in the UK, I think there's still a few tickets. But if you're there, come see me at 6 p.m. on Saturday. I'm going to do a little meetup at the Body Mind tent and do a treasure hunt, a vegan treasure hunt. And I'm going to give away Rebel Vegan t-shirts with my little logo right there away as well. So if you happen to be there at Vegan Campout, I'd love to meet you 6 p.m. on Sunday. So come see us.
Well, yeah, everybody here, if you're out there, go see Todd and get Rebel Vegan book and check out the webpage. And gosh, this has been so much fun. Do you have the book right there?
I do. Well, this is my travel guide.
Ta-da. Oh, yeah. Veganism on the Go, travel guide.
Veganism on the Go. And I've got my grounding book, Why Veganism Matters. And then my nutrition guide as well, my plant-based nutrition guide. But this one here has a lot of my travel stories. And, well, they all have my story through it. So if you need a gift for somebody who's thinking about veganism, this here will push them over the edge for sure, I think. Hopefully inspire them. And if you're going out on the road, my travel guide definitely is just packed with stories and information and resources as well. So, and recipes. I even have travel recipes in that one. So yeah, I would just come and see me on Instagram. That would be great.
We'll all head over to Instagram. So this has been wonderful. Thank you so much, Todd. And thanks, Rainbow Vegan Rocks. Thanks, JJ, and everyone else that's watching. Yes, and everybody watching the replay, please reach out to Todd and on Instagram. And I can't wait to see the videos from this big Veg Fest this weekend. I guess weekend, yes.
I will post them. And thank you, everybody. Yeah, I'm reading all the messages now, and everybody's really lovely. And Mariquita, it's just been a joy to finally meet you, even virtually. One day, hopefully, we'll meet, and I'll take you to Vegan Campout.
Yes. All right. Sounds good.
Do that.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Namaste, vegan, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.